Welcome back to FlyEaglesFly News, where we keep it real and we keep it loud. If you felt this season was a roller coaster from the first snap to the final whistle, you are not alone. This year was one of those campaigns where you were constantly torn between excitement and frustration because the Eagles showed flashes of being truly dominant. And then they would disappear right when it mattered most, and now that the dust has settled, there are still a few burning questions that need answers. We have to talk about Jalen Hurts and this ongoing leadership debate that keeps getting tossed around like it is settled fact. We have to talk about Howie Roseman and the way these offensive coordinator interviews have been handled, and most importantly, we have to talk about the playoffs. Because this was not just a loss. This was a season that ended without the payoff we all expected, and that is the part that stings the most. I waited to make this video because I wanted to see how the rest of the postseason played out. I wanted to see if the Eagles could have realistically made a run if everything had gone perfectly. And then Sunday happened. We watched the 49ers win with a bunch of backups, and suddenly the entire landscape changed. That team was not even close to full strength, yet they still came out on top. And here is the part that I think too many people are missing. The issue was not the defense. People keep trying to downplay the defense like they did not show up. They did. They created turnovers. They made big plays. And they kept the game within reach. The problem was that we had zero complementary football. Every time the Seahawks got the ball, they scored. They ran the ball well. They passed the ball well. And they had a coach who actually knew how to adjust and keep the offense moving. That is what happens when your own offense cannot sustain drives. And here is the truth nobody wants to say out loud. When you go 3 and out repeatedly, your defense is going to get worn down. It is not rocket science. You cannot ask a defense to play at a high level for the entire game when the offense keeps putting them right back on the field. That is why the Seahawks were able to beat the 49ers late in the game. It was not that the 49ers did not show up. It was that they did not have the pieces to keep up. And watching that, I could not help but feel furious that we wasted a season where we had arguably the best roster in the NFC and one of the best setups in the league. We had a real chance to make a serious run, and instead we fumbled it away. It was not just one mistake or one bad call. It was a season full of missed opportunities, questionable coaching decisions, and a lack of identity on offense when it mattered most. The defense gave us everything they could. But you cannot carry an entire season on your back. Not when the offense is inconsistent and the coaching staff keeps repeating the same mistakes over and over. So when people try to blame the fans or act like the defense did not play well, it is just not accurate. The defense showed up. The offense did not. And that falls squarely on the coaching. Now we are watching the head coaching interviews. And honestly, it is starting to feel like a joke. Howie Roseman keeps saying he is interviewing a wide range of candidates, but the names being thrown around feel more like a list of who is available rather than who can actually fix this offense. It feels like he is just picking names out of a hat. We have seen reports about Brian Daboll, and I get it, he has a resume. He has done impressive things in Buffalo and he has shown he can run an offense, but the problem is he a leader? That is the real question. Because you can be a brilliant offensive mind and still not have the kind of leadership that fits this locker room. And let us not forget that Daboll is the coach who benched Hurts at Alabama. And that history can be tricky. It could be a good thing because it means he knows what Hurts is capable of and how to get the best out of him. But it could also bring tension that you do not want in a situation where the quarterback needs stability and confidence. If Hurts does not want him here, then that is a problem. Because the head coach has to be a collective decision. You cannot just bring in someone the quarterback is not comfortable with and expect everything to magically work out. But then you look at the other names, like Bobby Slowick from Miami, and that one actually feels promising. He is a low-key name, but he has shown he can create explosive offense and get the most out of a young quarterback. If you cannot get the big name hire, then this is the type of hire that makes sense. He is young, he is smart, and he has clearly learned from a coach who has built a dynamic offense in Miami. The problem is that if he does well here, he will not stay long. That is the risk. He could be gone after a year or two, and then we are back to square one. But at least it would be progress. And then there's the one name that should be the obvious choice, Mike McDaniel. This is the guy who has proven he can build an elite offense, who understands how to design plays and manage an attack that keeps defenses guessing. The way he talks about the game, it is like he is a human computer. He understands concepts and schemes at a level most coaches do not even reach. If the Eagles want to truly be elite, they need someone who can take this offense to another level. Nick Sirianni has had success, but there is no denying that the offense has stalled when it mattered most, and if we are being honest, it is time for a change. The time is now. Now let's switch gears and talk about the bigger narrative that has been floating around lately. The one that keeps getting thrown around like it is some kind of established truth. Jalen Hurts being labeled as a bad leader. You have probably seen the headlines. You have probably seen the takes from people who clearly do not have any inside information. There was that survey that supposedly showed Hurts is not respected, not liked, and not a leader. But then you look at the actual facts, and you see he was ranked among the top leaders in the Eagles' locker room. That alone debunks the whole thing. It is clickbait, it is noise, and it is the kind of narrative that gets pushed when people want to stir the pot and create drama, where there does not need to be any, because if you actually watch how the season unfolded, you see a guy who stepped up when the coaching staff did not have answers. You see a guy who became more vocal when the team needed direction. You see a guy who did not let personal issues with teammates define the season. Even when there was tension with A.J. Brown, Hurts handled it like a leader. He did not let it fester. He addressed it. He moved on, and they ended the season on a better note. That is what leadership looks like. It is not always about being the loudest guy in the room. Sometimes it is about being the one who keeps the team together when everything is falling apart. And Hurts did that. He kept the team steady when the rest of the organization seemed to be spinning out of control. And that is the part that really stands out to me, because this year, the Eagles did not just lose. They lost because of a lack of cohesion on offense, because of poor decision-making, and because the coaching staff could not get the unit moving when it mattered most. But Hurts, he showed up. He showed up as a leader. He showed up as a competitor. And he showed up as the guy who was willing to take responsibility even when things got messy. That is not something you can easily replace. That is not something you can just brush off as a narrative. That is the kind of player you build around, not the kind you tear down. Now, if you are watching all this unfold, you have to ask yourself what the Eagles are really doing with this offseason, because right now, it feels like we are in a weird limbo. We have a quarterback who is proven, who has shown he can win big games, and who has grown into a leader. But then you look at the way the team ended this season, and you see a franchise that seems to be questioning everything, and that is the problem. If you are going to build a championship team, you need consistency, you need a plan, you need direction, and right now, it feels like we are just throwing ideas at the wall and seeing what sticks. The first thing that needs to be addressed is the coaching situation. If you are going to keep Nick Sirianni, then you need to give him a staff that can actually win in the playoffs. You cannot keep running the same offense with the same issues and expect a different result. It is not how it works. The Eagles were supposed to be built for this. We had the weapons, we had the defense, we had the talent. But the offense, especially in the biggest moments, looked lost. And that is why the playoff loss was so painful, because it was not just that we lost. It was how we lost. It was like watching a team that had all the tools, but did not know how to use them when the pressure was on. And that is why the offensive coordinator search is so important. Because you cannot keep hoping that the same system that got you this far will suddenly start working in the playoffs. It does not happen like that. You need someone who can adjust, someone who can read defenses and change the game plan on the fly. Someone who can put the quarterback in the best position to succeed. And if that is not happening, then you need to change the architecture of the offense. You need to bring in a mind that understands how to build a complete attack, not just a flashy one that works in the regular season. That is where the names come in. You have guys like Brian Daboll, who clearly knows how to run an offense, but you also have the question of leadership and fit. You have guys like Bobby Slowick, who are young and innovative and could bring a fresh approach, and then you have the dream option, Mike McDaniel, who is the kind of offensive mind that can take this team to another level. And the reality is that if the Eagles want to be serious about competing, they need to stop playing games and go after the best option, because the NFC is not going to get easier. Teams are getting better. Quarterbacks are getting better. And if you are not evolving, you are falling behind. Now, let us talk about the bigger picture. Because what happened this season was not just a loss on the field, it was a loss in momentum. The Eagles had a chance to establish themselves as the top team in the NFC for years. We had a window where everything was aligned, but instead of capitalizing on it, We let it slip away, and that is why the frustration is so real. It is not that we are disappointed because we lost. It is that we lost the opportunity to cement ourselves as a dynasty-level team. We had the chance, and we let it slip. And then you look at the other teams in the league and you see how fragile success can be. The Rams, for example, might have one of the easiest paths to the Super Bowl. They have a quarterback situation that is questionable, but they have a roster that is built to win. If they make it to the Super Bowl, they will be playing a team that is either the Broncos with a backup quarterback or the Patriots. A team that still feels like it is trying to figure out its identity. That is not a scary matchup, not when you consider the talent we have. That is why it is so frustrating, because it is like we were supposed to be the ones in that position. And that brings us back to the leadership question. Because the narrative that Hurts is a bad leader is not just wrong, it is disrespectful. It is disrespectful to a guy who has carried this team and who has grown every single year. It is disrespectful to the locker room that has publicly praised him. And it is disrespectful to the fans who know what they have seen on the field. You cannot just throw out a narrative like that and expect people to accept it without question. You have to look at the evidence, and the evidence is clear. Jalen Hurts is a leader. He is the kind of leader that steps up when the team needs it most. He is the kind of leader that does not let personal issues destroy the team. And he is the kind of leader that has earned the respect of his teammates. Now, I am not saying he is perfect. Nobody is. But what I am saying is that he deserves better than to be used as a scapegoat for a season. That was lost because of coaching and scheme issues. Because if you want to blame someone, blame the system, blame the play calling, blame the lack of consistency. Blame the fact that we never really found a rhythm in the biggest games. Those are the real issues. And those are the issues that need to be addressed this offseason. Because if the Eagles want to come back stronger, they need to make bold decisions. They need to stop being timid. They need to stop making the same mistakes and expecting a different result. They need to be willing to bring in a coach who can elevate the offense. They need to be willing to give Jalen Hurts the support he needs to succeed. And they need to be willing to build a team that can win when the lights are the brightest. FlyEaglesFly News family, smash subscribe and hit like. Your support keeps the freshest Philadelphia Eagles updates flying in. Drop your take in the comments and let's talk birds. Whispers around the league are growing louder, and they all circle the same shocking possibility. Jalen Hurts may be nearing the end of his time in Philadelphia. While nothing has been made official, several insiders suggest that the relationship between the quarterback and the Eagles could be entering a delicate phase, one where silence speaks louder than statements. Front offices talk quietly, agents listen carefully, and rival teams monitor every move, sensing that something unusual may be unfolding behind closed doors. Hurts has been the face of the franchise, a symbol of toughness and leadership, but rumors point to internal debates about the team's long-term direction. Some believe the organization is reassessing its financial structure and future roster flexibility, while others hint at philosophical differences between player and management in NFL circles. Even minor disagreements can snowball into major turning points, especially when a star quarterback is involved. Executives from other teams are said to be intrigued, viewing Hurts as a rare blend of composure, athleticism, and command. The idea that he could become available, even hypothetically, has already sparked speculative conversations about blockbuster trades and bold rebuilds. Philadelphia, known for calculated aggression, might be weighing whether now is the moment to reshape its identity, cashing in on maximum value rather than clinging to comfort. Inside the locker room, the mood is described as professional but tense, the kind of atmosphere where players sense uncertainty without needing explanations. Hurts himself has remained measured in public, offering no clear clues, which only fuels the mystery in this league. Silence often precedes seismic change. For now, it remains a rumor, a theory passed from one executive hallway to another. But history shows that the NFL rarely whispers without reason. If Jalen Hurts truly is edging toward an exit from the Eagles, it could mark one of the most defining shifts in recent franchise memory, altering not just one team's future, but the balance of power across the league. That's a wrap from FlyEaglesFly News. If you want the fastest Eagles updates, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Sound off in the comments. Let's talk birds.